This video is about the pulp magazine Planet Stories versus the comic book Planet Comics, which both featured exciting science fiction stories. After this introduction image, presented is a chronological series of all the covers for each, starting with Planet Stories from 1939 to 1955 and followed by Planet Comics from 1940 to 1953. Both feature lots of phenomenal cover art, which rapidly became much more sophisticated after each series started, and both were published by Fiction House. While the covers go by, lots of fascinating information is provided, but is not intended to correspond with specific covers. If you would like to see a live action movie about any of the covers, which, and do you have a specific actress that you want involved? Planet Stories was a pulp magazine and featured interplanetary adventures, both in space and on other planets. Pulp magazines, also known as pulps, were the successors to the penny dreadfuls, dime novels, and short story magazines of the 1800s. They were published from 1896 to the late 1950s, and the term pulp comes from the cheap wood pulp paper that they were printed on. Comic books could be considered as successors to pulp magazines, as well as paperback books, digest magazines, and men's adventure magazines. By the late 1800s, stories about science fiction invention and stories about the future were appearing regularly in popular fiction magazines. This was in part in the tradition of earlier Jules Verne stories. For Planet Stories, Malcolm Rees was editor or editor-in-chief for all of its 71 issues. Planet Stories was launched within the same time frame as Fiction House's Planet Comics. Planet Comics may have helped fund the early issues of Planet Stories. Planet Stories occasionally obtained work from well-known authors, including Isaac Asimov, Clifford D. Simic, James Blish, Frederick Brown, and Damon Knight. In 1952, Planet Stories published Philip K. Dick's first sale and printed 4 more of his stories over the next 3 years. The 2 writers most identified with Planet Stories are Lee Brackett and Ray Bradbury, both of whom set many of their stories on a romanticized version of Mars, much as Edgar Rice Burroughs, the creator of Tarzan, did with his character John Carter of Mars. Ray Bradbury's work for Planet Stories included an early story in his Martian Chronicles sequence. Lee Brackett's best-known work for the magazine was a series of adventures featuring Eric John Stark. Ray Bradbury and Lee Brackett collaborated on one story, Lorelei of the Red Mist, which appeared in 1946. Lee Brackett's writing improved during the 1940s from formulaic pulp adventures, and she became the most accomplished writer of planetary romances of her day. Her work had a strong influence on other writers, in particular Gardner F. Fox, Lynn Carter, and Marion Zimmer Bradley. The cover art featured great-looking people involved in fantastic science fiction adventures. The cover art was often by Alan Anderson during the early years, and later Kelly Freas became a frequent cover artist. There was also interior artwork, much of it contributed by Hans Bach. One of the best artists to work on Planet Stories was Alexander Leidenfrost, whose interior artwork may have been better than his covers. The letter column was titled The Visograph, and it printed letters from fans and professionals, and fans who later went on to become professionals. Planet Comics was published from January 1940 to winter 1953, and the art style evolved and became much more sophisticated looking over time. This was during the golden age of comic books, which was from 1938 to 1956. As a bonus, the cover of a similar one-shot fiction house comic book titled Man o' Mars, cover dated February 1953, is presented in line with the chronological timing of the other covers. Planet Comics was the first comic book dedicated entirely to science fiction. It featured lots of great art and fascinating stories about many characters. Like most of Fiction House's early comic book titles, Planet Comics was a spin-off of a pulp magazine, in this case, Planet Stories. Like the magazine before it, Planet Comics featured space operatic tales of muscular, heroic space adventurers who are quick with their ray pistols and always running into gorgeous women who need rescuing from bug-eyed space aliens or fiendish interstellar bad guys. However, some covers and stories do feature female heroes. Planet Comics also employed female artists, including Lily Renee, Marcia Snyder, Ruth Atkinson, and Fran Hopper. Many artists who would become well-known names worked on Planet Comics stories, including Murphy Anderson, Matt Baker, Nick Cardy, Joe Doolan, Graham Ingalls, George Evans, Ruben Morea, John Cullen, George Tuska, and Maurice Whitman. The early covers were drawn by industry legend Will Eisner. Many later covers were drawn by Dan Zolnowicz, Joe Doolan, and Maurice Whitman. Some covers were done by female artist Lily Renee. Letters from readers printed in Planet Comics showed that the readership included both male and female readers. A typical issue would consist of multiple stories regarding different characters. And next, I will review the following various characters and features: Oro, Lord of Jupiter; Flint Baker; Reef Ryan; Futura; Gale Allen; Mars, Guard of War; Mistra of the Moon; Star Pirate, The Lost World; The Red Comet; and the Space Rangers. Oro, Lord of Jupiter, was the name of two different characters. The first incarnation was the son of Professor Hardwicz and was essentially an outer space version of Tarzan, where Oro was befriended by a saber-toothed tiger and he was stranded on Jupiter with muscles as strong as steel thanks to the higher gravitational pull of the planet. The second incarnation was a young scientist named Chester Edson who crashes on Jupiter, and his spirit is transferred into the body of the original Oro, who is thus resurrected as a Flash Gordon type of hero. Flint Baker was an athletic space hero who eventually teamed up with Reef Ryan to form the Space Rangers. Reef Ryan was a heroic space captain. Futura was a smashingly lovely crusader for interplanetary justice who began as a scantily clad female and was abducted and taken to the city of Sumradia in space. Futura was drawn in a manner similar to Prince Valiant, with no word balloons in the panels. Gale Allen was a voluptuous female space adventurer in the then far-off year of 1990, who led an all-female women's space battalion to fight menaces like the Mad Master of Venus and her arch-enemy, Prince Blagu Daru. Mars, God of War, involved the adventures of the ancient Roman god causing violent mischief on other planets. Mars, God of War, was the embodiment of evil, and his spirit would single out a man or woman who had evil in them, possess them, and run rampant until the end of the story when good always triumphed. Mister of the Moon starts out with her and a young boy being taken to the moon, whereas scientist Dr. Court provides them with a phenomenal education until they are young adults. He does this because he anticipated that Earth would become violently anti-knowledge, which it did. Unfortunately, Mars, the god of war, initiates a series of events that result in the death of the scientist and young man. Shortly before he dies, the scientist provides Mistra with a robot, which helps her in future adventures as an adult. Star Pirate was a Robin Hood of the space lanes and looked very much like the DC Comics character Starman. The Lost World is set in the 33rd century, and Hunt Bowman and Lisa are in a struggle against reptilian conquerors of Earth, the Volta-Men. The Red Comet is a costumed hero who fought crime all over the universe and sometimes grew to a giant size. The Space Rangers was a combination of Reef Ryan and Flint Baker with uniforms something like those seen on TV's Rocky Jones Space Ranger. Fiction House also published other genres, including Jungle Girls, war, and horror. More videos like this one, short and longer, can be viewed at the Comic Excitement Convention Fiction House playlist. Please like, comment, subscribe, and click the notifications bell.